All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So this one's going to have audio. So we're going to be talking about square roots and perfect squares. Now you might see this symbol as a radical. You might see it as a square root. They mean the same thing. So the ones that we're going to be looking at today is the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 9 is 3, the square root of 16 is 4, the square root of 25 is 5, the square root of 36 is 6. The square root of 49 is 7. The square root of 64 is 8. The square root of 81 is 9. The square root of 100 is 10. Now, I hope all of those are review for you, but we are going to look at a couple others. So the square root of 121 is 11. There were a few others at the bottom there. Again, this is something that I think for the way we're learning this now, you're just going to have this list in front of you, okay? I'm not going to in any way make you memorize these. I mean, most part you should have them memorized somewhat, but you can keep this list handy or you can make a little list for yourself. Again, just looking at the highlighted ones. Okay, so there's a few different ways to look at this table, but ultimately, if you look at the highlighted information, that'll give you your best shot at just seeing what the perfect squares are. All right, so we went through like the square root of 9 is 3, right? And we can go through each of these. We can see what we're looking at. We've got different radicals at the bottom, a little simplified. There are additional square roots. Now, the whole reason we're showing you this is so that you can see how to solve the problems on, so that you can see how to solve the problems on the Delta Math assignment that I posted a couple days ago at this point, as I'm coming back to add the audio in after it did not save. I just decided to rewrite these here at the bottom. I thought the text from the photocopy scan didn't come out great. It's square root of 121 is 11, the square root of 144 is 12, the square root of 169 is 13, the square root of 196 is 14, and the square root of 225 is 15. Okay, so we're going to go into Delta Math. So this was the website we looked at in the last video, how to join. That video now has text. So you're going to type in your username and you're going to type in your password. Okay, I'm putting in mine here. So you're going to click login, and if you remember, we see that first assignment is up. So now we've got Simplifying Radicals Guided. Okay, not due until Sunday at midnight, but we have that assignment up there. We have some time to do it. So we're going to click Simplifying Radicals Guided. And the first question is Radical 288. Now we're going to go back to our scrap paper and we're going to work on this problem. So this is how you should be doing it. You should have your computer out, and then you should have a piece of paper and a pencil, whether it's your notebook, whatever it is. So we're going to take that Radical 288 and we're going to go back to our notebook and we're going to write that down. So we take our Radical 288, and now we're just going to look at the number 288, and we're going to go back to our list of perfect squares. And we're looking at the numbers under the radical, and we're going to start dividing by each of the numbers under the radical that is smaller than 288. So we'll do 288 divided by 225 first. Then we'll do 288 divided by 196. Then we'll do 288 divided by 169, and so on. We're going to stop when one of these divides in evenly. What do I mean by divides in evenly? I mean that we're looking for something that divides in where there is no decimal. So the minute you get a decimal, you can stop. I'm going to write each of these out, and I'm using a calculator on the side. It's off screen, you can't see it. But when I'm writing each of these out, as soon as I notice that there's a decimal, I could stop. So you don't have to write all of these out when you do it, but you do have to quickly just plug them into your calculator. So the minute I got 1.28, it's done. 288 divided by 196, I get 1. So I plug that into my calculator, and I get 1.46, and so on. I'm done though. It's got a decimal. It can't be the answer. Okay, so I continue on with 288 divided by 169. Again, I'm going to plug that into my calculator and see what I get. If I get a decimal, it's gone. I'm looking for the first thing that does not have a decimal. Finally, I'm going to do 288 divided by 144, and I'm going to get the number 2. No decimal, just 2. that tells me that 144 and 2 are the numbers that I'm going to be using. So what I'm going to do now is, you may have noticed that on the Delta Math page there was a radical 288 and then there was 2 radicals underneath it. Well, that's what we're going to do here. We're going to break up that 288 into the 144 and the 2. So we've got radical 144 and we've got radical 2. Okay, those are the 2 numbers that we got. Now, 144 happens to be a perfect square, right? That square root of 144 is one of the things we highlighted, and we know that that is equal to 12. So the next step here is to simplify that 144 into a 12. The radical 2 is not one of the numbers especially listed, so we're going to leave that as radical 2. So we go back to our Delta Math assignment. And you'll notice that they didn't have the simplified answer right away. They want us to take it a step at a time. So the first thing we're going to do is type in that first thing that we did, which was break the 288 into a 144 and a 2. When you click that try box, it'll then allow you to simplify. So the square root of 144 we said was 12. So we're going to bring in a 12 and we're going to put a radical 2 in there. And we're going to hit try. Okay, and when you hit that try button, it'll now ask you if you want to submit this as your final answer. So we're going to submit it as our final answer. We're going to say, yes, I want to submit it as my answer. And the minute I click yes, it's going to tell me instantly whether I'm right or wrong. If I'm wrong, I will get another attempt at it. If I'm right, that's it. And you'll notice that my record has now gone up to 1 out of 5. I now have a score of 1, and I've completed 20% of the assignment that I've asked you to. Now they're going to show you 2 different ways to solve this, a fast path and a slow path. We're going to work on just simplifying with the fast path right now. The slow path is really I made a mistake and I didn't do it fully. But I go to my next question and I can see that my next question is radical 300, and we're going to do the exact same thing to that radical 300. Again, can't do any of this in our head. We need to use the calculator. Okay, so we're going to go right to, and what I did here is I hit example problem up at the top, so that I could just see an example of how this works. Now, the example problem doesn't show you the division, but it does show you how they're looking for you to format your answer. Some examples are better than others, but that's why I'm making these videos, to show you in detail how to solve these questions. Remember, your numbers are going to be different than mine, but that's okay. Okay, you're going to look at these numbers and you're going to, be able to work with those. So the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to take this radical 300. We're going to go back to our notebook paper and we're going to put that radical 300 in our notebook paper, and then we'll start dividing again, looking for a perfect square that divides in evenly. Now, it's also important to note that when we're doing this scrap work is your work, right? So just because it's online on the computer doesn't mean that we're going to be doing this without showing work. So we start with 300 divided by 225. We divide, we get 1.3 repeating, okay? There's a decimal, doesn't work. So then we just keep going down. It is vitally important, though, that you start with the biggest number less than the number you're starting with. So we're 300. If we were starting with, let's say, 100, we would start by dividing by 81. Okay, but it's very important that we start with the biggest that we can and divide by each one, because if you go from small to big, you end up going with the long method, and you have to do this multiple times. If you want to do it once, do it from top to bottom. So I'm dividing each time here, and you'll notice that I'm eventually going to hopefully get something that does not have a decimal. So there's a decimal, I'm done. Okay, I'm putting the ... in just because I don't want to write the whole thing out for the calculator, right? The calculator. But the minute I get a single decimal, it doesn't matter. It did not work. So now I try 121 and I get 2.47. That didn't work. So now we're done with that. We'll go to 100. So 300 divided by 100 is the number 3. And so we're going to use, that works, there's no decimal, we're good. So that means we're going to be breaking radical 300 up into radical 100 and radical 3. another great thing about these videos is you can pause them, you could rewatch them, you could, listen to them, you could do this as many times as you need to. So we've got radical 100, we've got radical 3. You'll notice we always put the perfect square first. So radical 100 is 10. So we're going to be replacing that radical 100 with a 10, and we will get 10 radical 3. All right, let's go back into Delta Math to put the answer in. All right, so the first step was to break up that radical 300 into a radical 100 and a radical 3. We're going to hit try. And that's going to bring us to the next level. We said that radical 100 actually becomes a 10, and radical 3 is just going to stay as radical 3. We're going to hit try, and we're going to say, yes, we want to submit this as our final answer. And you'll notice now my record has gone up to 2 out of 5, and my score has gone up to 2, and I've completed 40% of my assignment. Now, if I were to log off here and come back, it wouldn't matter. I'd still be at 2 out of 5, 40% of my assignment. So I know some of you have had some questions like, I can't see whether I submitted, things like that. Well, now that's not a problem anymore because you'll be able to see on your screen, okay, whether or not. So if you go back, it now says you've done 40% on the assignment and you've gotten 2 out of 5 correct. Now remember, this is, you got to get 5 questions correct. So as long as you have a 5 and you've got 100%, you're good to go. It might, if you get questions wrong, it might take you 6, 7 questions to get 5 right, but that's okay. That number doesn't matter, and we can see what you got wrong, what you put in as an answer. We can't see your work. I mean, that's going to happen on a physical piece of paper in front of you, but we can see what answer you tried to put in and things like that, and then we can try and make those corrections. So again, make sure you're watching the video, make sure you're listening to the video, and use this video to help you see where things are going. Okay, even though it says due April 5th, you will be able to submit late. I know that everyone here is under different resource. They have different resources available. So we'll definitely be able to extend that if we have to. But if you're going to have it late, just please get in contact with one of us to make sure that we know that you are working and that everything's okay. All right, so that's it for this video. Go do 5 on your own now, and then you'll see a new video next week. All right. Have a great day.